Welcome to Immigration Invasion, a podcast where we explore the ridiculous and absurd aspects of immigration law in the U.S. We're your hosts, Asma Din
and Robert Armstrong.
We are very, very excited to have our guest, Paul Zoltan, on this Immigration Invasion episode. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
So, Paul, we are calling this episode the Paul Zoltan Survival Guide.
Yeah.
Now, those of us who practice in Dallas, even if you don't know Paul personally, maybe you've never met him before, but everybody's heard of him.
You've heard the legend.
They've heard the legend.
The tales of Zoltan.
The tales of Paul Zoltan. And so we were super excited to have him on this episode. So Paul, we're going to kind of give you the floor a little bit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How many years have you been practicing?
Well, I arrived in Dallas to work for a nonprofit in 1992. I worked for 5 years for the agency Proyecto Adelante, and left that employed because my boss was a jerk. But in my own practice, did a lot of the similar work, asylum claims, Central American primarily, but also working with folks from Burma and Africa. It's been a long ride. Most of the time as a sole practitioner, and never a dull moment. And I dare say that the fire in my belly when I started is raging right now, hotter than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm, and that's one of the reasons we wanted you here, Paul, because I think in this climate, it's very easy to allow the chaos to wear you down, right?
Yeah.
Everything
Right.
is doom, gloom, negative. And you're somebody that I've known for several years. I know that you've been practicing, and you take on tough cases, right? Like you're not someone that shies away from these tough cases, and you've been doing it for a long time, and at least outwardly you seem relatively sane. So we
Yeah.
we wanted to see if we could kind of tap into the way that maybe the way you look at the world, some of the rules of Zoltan. And so, we're going to just kind of ask those questions, and I want to flesh out a little bit more for people that may not know you, who you are and where this perspective is coming from. So, what is one of or a couple of the most memorable court cases that you've had? Right, because you've done practice in federal court. You've done, obviously, you're a staple at immigration court. So,
The case still that comes first to mind is a case I tried very early in my time at Proyecto Adelante. I had a Salvadoran client who was a nurse, and she had cared for a guerrilla soldier, and she did it because it was the right thing to do, and he was injured and near her village, and she was summoned to assist. Soon after, he was made well and left. The army came and wanted to know who had been consorting with the enemy, and she was. They took her and raped her and thought that they had taught her a lesson, and they had. she hadn't been sympathetic to the guerrillas until that moment, and she became it brought out the fight in her, and ultimately she wound up fleeing the government of El Salvador, applying for asylum here, and I found myself in the company of someone whom I admired very deeply, and uh, and um, and for whom it was an honor to it was an honor to protect her, to do my part to see that that something like that never again would happen to her. Um, the all of the 30 some years of my career have been punctuated by cases like this, where it was clear to me that the my client was absolutely deserving, and that it, to walk away um, would have been I wouldn't want to be the person who walked away, and I still feel very strongly that with the skills that I've acquired over the years, the notion of quitting now more than ever is again, I just wouldn't want to be that person. Um, I I see the need now more clearly than ever before, and I recognize that I've acquired skills, and I have tools that mustn't sit idle. There's too much work to be done.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I think uh I feel like Ozma can relate, I can relate to that sentiment of, you know what, I can't do everything,
Mhm.
but I can do something,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do the shit out of it, right?
Mhm.
Like
Right.
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
this situation motivates me to narrow my focus a
Mhm.
little bit, and to lean in.
Right.
I don't know if it's because of courage or because I'm too lazy to try to get up and learn something else. I don't know. I'll say courage.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
yeah. But it is, I think, what is needed
Mhm.
right now from good people, right?
Right.
Because a lot of good attorneys, very attorneys I admire, the many years of practice, uh decided they're done. They threw in the towel, like this is just not something they wanted to endure, right, any
Right.
longer. Um, but I'm not at that point yet.
Mhm. Mm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, it comes down to, a lot of us immigration practitioners, we are humanitarians at heart. That's really what it is. And I can't sit back and just kind of watch everything that's going on and, like Paul mentioned, not use the skills that we've acquired over the years, our litigation skills, our negotiation skills, etc., to help the immigrant population who is so scared right now.
yeah.
Mhm.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Um, it's thinking of Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
yeah.
But I kind of, that speaks to me. It makes you heard that the first time, the hair stood up on the
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
nape of my neck.
Hell, even
It's
with a little bit of power,
yeah.
Yeah.
we may not have great power, but we
No,
got a little bit,
we
Yeah.
and
certainly
still
do. We yeah.
great responsibility.
We live in I reckon we live in a time that that is so important, that is a pivot point, and I think that our grandchildren will be, if we have them, are going to be asking us what we were doing in this moment. Um, the I recognize that allusions to Nazi Germany are at present hyperbolic, but um, we're playing with fire.
Yeah.
We are playing with fire. This language of invasion,
Yeah.
that makes my stomach churn,
Mhm.
is it's not so far removed from the epithet cockroach. It isn't so far removed from language that justifies violence, that it opens the door to inhumanity on a mechanized, industrialized scale, and it has me terrified.
Yeah. I've
We're
read somewhere, Paul, that while drawing a direct analog to Hitler's Nazi Germany, um, it's not a one for one.
Mhm.
However, it is very close to what happened in the lead up in the 30s, right, in Germany.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of, if we
Yeah.
do nothing, it paves the road for that
Yes.
kind of situation to
Yes.
happen.
Yes. Yes. The potential for great evil, and it is very much, it seems to me to be very much apparent in the overreaction to civil disobedience, not even unrest. This the language, in the language of invasion, the language of riots.
Right.
This isn't an invasion, and that's not a riot. Each invites an overreaction, indeed compels one, and
Yeah.
these are scary times, and it is absolutely critical
Mhm.
to I think not walk away from the fight. And it's not enough just enough. I would encourage colleagues, I would encourage y'all and anybody listening, if you've knowledge of what's happening in immigration court, if you've knowledge of what's happening in the legal system, speak up. Share your opinion. We now in social discourse, we pussyfoot around difficult topics lest we offend someone. Well, for heaven's sake, to offend people, speak
Yeah.
up. What's happening is it you know it it's butt ugly,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and
No offense to butts.
None
If there's any butt listening,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
It's we this is all all this reaction, which what feeds my my concern, is that this is happening at a time before what will probably be a much greater movement of people. We have, if we can, if we weather this storm, what comes next? With global warming, apart from conflict, there's going to be a great, the movement of people across this planet is going only to increase in the years and decades to come. If we can't handle what we've, the folks who are here, if we can't treat them as humans, as us, if we can't grudgingly accord them recognition, as the recognition of their humanity, then what lies ahead? This is the testing point.
Yeah.
This is where we make a stand for the notion that we all have rights under a constitution that doesn't distinguish between, illegals, so-called,
Right.
and the rest of us. Due process rights are held universally, and as are human rights.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now is the time to take a stand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so before we all got on here recording, we were we were talking with Paul kind of about this episode, and this kind of goes back, Paul, to what you were saying about, what are we teaching kind of our future generations, our kids and our grandkids,
And even if it's worth having kids,
yeah,
right? Because
absolutely.
I've heard a lot of people. I mean, you see that in younger generations. Um, you know, I
Mhm.
think my generation, whatever it may be, right, uh, was probably the last that was going to
Yeah.
have like a whole fistful of kids, uh, in your 20s, right? And these younger generations are much more hesitant, and to the point where they're like, hey,
Mhm.
why even bring kids into this crazy world? But you have a different
Yeah.
perspective that I like.
He did. And I just loved this perspective so much.
Mhm.
And it really touched me as a parent because
Mhm.
you want to, I think the thing that keeps you up at night as a parent is, am I raising a good human being? And I loved what Paul said about what, Paul, I want you
Yeah.
to talk a little bit about what you said.
What's a
It's
dragon
just it's
Yeah.
right.
What's a dragon slayer?
Right. Well, it's not original to me, but when I read, probably on Facebook, this and I won't do it justice. I paraphrase. Why would why would you bring a child into this world? Well, um, to me, an answer that is more than sufficient is, um, today, now, we have dragons. Why would you not bring a dragon slayer into this world? And the um, I truly believe this. I used to think of, I hesitated for years about having a child, thinking, well, this child will, is going to be American, consume an outsized share of limited resources on planet Earth. But um, you know, I I have brought up my daughter, to see injustice. I have brought up my daughter, to be an upstander. I know I know that she is one. I know it with my soul. I know that she will look out for others, and that she is not going to take lying down, or what she sees that is wrong. She will step forward, um, with whatever whatever she has at hand. If it is sword, or a book, a
Flail.
laptop.
I'm a big nerd. I can get this list going. Flail, falchion, a
Scimitar,
broadsword. Yes,
yes, yes.
absolutely.
Size.
Buster sword. Absolutely. All
She's
of it.
yeah. And no, whatever the job requires, whatever field she chooses, I know that she will that she'll be that she'll carry on the fight. I don't expect her to be a lawyer. I rather doubt that she will become one. But she will. Uh, she too will
Fight the fight.
recognize that she's a job to do, and that's um, uh, and that's true now more than at any time in my life. We have a job to do.
Yeah.
I I dearly hope to um, that I will pass to her uh, what remains of a democracy. Not that I alone can preserve it,
Right.
but I won't. But I don't shrink from the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great to hear, Paul. And you know, uh, in that view, regardless of how bad the situation gets, there's still hope, right? There's still room to carry a flame, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what, as practitioners, we really need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we shared before the podcast when we were prepping, that we want to try to stay within a certain tone in this show, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
tone is like, hey, nothing that we laugh at can hurt
Mm-hmm.
us, right?
Right.
It's that idea, the dichotomy of comedy and tragedy,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
with all the tragedy that's going on, we have to find ways to smile, to laugh, to not just find joy but create joy.
Sure. Yeah.
um
You and I like to do. You and I like to DJ or
See,
something.
exactly. I was
Uh-huh.
going
Yeah.
right there. Was what are some of the hobbies that you do that keep sane? And so I can't actually claim to actually be able to DJ
Neither can
with
I.
music. No, yeah. I mean, you're saying that, but we've seen you. We have witnesses that have seen you on the ones and twos,
Uh-huh.
where I'm a voice person.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
tell us, what
Uh-huh.
does I'm not sure what your DJ name is, Holly Z, the Mac,
Z-Man,
the Z Man,
The Z
the
Man.
original.
Okay.
So yeah, no,
Z Zoltan.
look, here's the I think a really exciting aspect of this, if you accept this notion that we've a job to do, if you accept this notion that we are in the midst of the fight for our lives. The friendships that emerge from, in the trenches, and I don't mean to go too far with this metaphor, but the friendships that emerge in the struggle are, wow. They it struggle tests friendship and forges friendship, and in my experience, the friends that I have made in this struggle, not recent year, this is too new, but from decades, from these many decades, among the people who consistently come through for me, and not just for the cause, come to my aid, are the ones that I've fought shoulder to shoulder with on issues. The there's something to be said for the camaraderie. There's a lot to be said for the camaraderie built of shared struggle. When two people act selflessly in pursuit of the same aim, and consistently look out for the other's welfare, this that there's a bond that's formed there, that it can be lifelong, and the parties that you allude to have the intensity and the delight in so many of them has everything to do with the common spirit among those two. These are my parties. They're the parties that I would host with Fernando de Bove, and almost without exception, those on on the invitation list were people who were engaged in making this world a better place. These were people who were fellow do-gooders, other fellow upstanders, fellow bleeding hearts, if you will. Uh, and um, and when we get together and let our hair down, it's a blast. And the connection, with people who share your engagement in the world, and the world. The music that I play is from all over the world. I mean, I delight in finding expressions, iterations of one genre of music, say reggaeton, that comes from Congo, or ska that comes from Toulouse. The whole that wonderful global mix, that celebration of diversity, celebration of common concern for one another. It's heady stuff, and we can find joy in each other's company. And I think, and nowadays you kind of must. We've got
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
we've got to find, have to make spaces for one another, to rest, to smile, and gather our forces for the next day.
Yeah.
Maybe hungover, but
Yeah. So Paul, how does one get an invite to these fabulous parties?
Yeah,
Like,
it's been an age. It's been an age since
Absolutely.
I have not taken my own medicine for quite some time, but I'm resolved now to get back in the DJ mode, and the the cruise director of yesteryear. We also need to lighten up.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
I feel like
Things are dark enough as it
we
is.
need Ayla Texas holiday party. We need to have
Yes.
Tim be the DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I would delight in doing just that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I think we all need to, right, how, at least what works for me, is also a little bit of carousing.
Yeah. Browsing. So I think I mean that's extremely inspiring, and that's the vibe, that's the energy that we wanted to get,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So now let's undo all of that hard work by going to our next
dark.
segment.
Our next segment, broken news. Okay, so it's been everywhere, all over, social media. Every time you turn on the TV, let's talk about what's going on in LA.
Right.
The LA riots is what Fox News is calling it.
Yes.
And so please correct me, both of you, if I'm wrong. My reading that I did on how this all started was where ICE had done some raids in Los Angeles, and they were primarily targeting places where day laborers are, Home Depots, places like that. And you know LA, large Spanish speaking population. I think they were getting sick and tired of watching people in their community being put in vans, and being shipped off. And so they responded.
Right.
And so, and they responded overall very peacefully.
Mhm.
And now, again, all kind of the right-wing media news outlets are, trying to show otherwise. Now Trump has called upon the National Guard to descend on Los Angeles.
As well as the active Marines, right? The actual Marines. So it's, for those of you that aren't too familiar with the way our military system is structured here, the National Guard is actually under the authority of the governor of the state. So this is the California National Guard, right? So to make it even more unprecedented, he's sent in the Marines, our like defend us from other country Marines into California to do riot police work, when the question of whether or not there is a riot is,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's plainly a pretext. What worries me most, is the, and there's plenty that does, but what worries me most in Los Angeles is the potential role for agent provocateur, the folks who, specifically, I'm thinking about the folks to whom who owe Trump their freedom, those who were not above rampaging through the U.S. House and who are Capitol building and who are. I fear, more than happy to do a little false flag, stone throwing, car burning. We'll see. I mean, I hope that the organizers are watching out for the potential for mischief from among our ranks.
Right.
I think that. We're it's really important to avoid uh, to avoid ourselves, avoid violence, and also reject those who would tug in that direction. That we are this close to a police state. Let's please not open the door to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that has to be when we say the media, right? The media. The media here is driven by financial interests, period, right? And if it bleeds, it leads. It's
Yes.
still how the media selects what stories are put out, and the
And always will.
algorithms are.
Yeah.
However, we have social media now, right? We have other ways to disseminate information, and so the images of folklorico dancers, right? Like
Yeah.
the positive, the boring parts
Yeah.
of this. I
Yeah.
think I want to see more of that. I want to see
That's
people
brilliant. Yes,
pushing
yes.
that because
I've seen some of that on social media.
there's
Yes, that people in Los Angeles making a point of, just um, demonstrating how things are not chaotic, how life goes on normally as it did in Portland. Unfortunately, during the first Trump administration, unfortunately, when there's a news source or news sources that are invested in selling
scandal and
Fear.
fear.
Yep.
It's
And
tough.
pillows.
It's
And pillows on them, right? My pillow.
Yes, touche. Yeah, it's really hard to take that camera and turn it just a little, from their focus on the burning car, and the gentleman waving a Mexican flag back and forth and back and forth,
Yeah.
right in front of that burning car. Boy, that was a gem. I dearly hope that in tomorrow's expression of response to dear leader's birthday, that I dearly hope that Mexican flags do not feature very prominently. It seems really counterproductive.
I'm sure. It doesn't. They don't have to feature prominently.
Yeah.
All it takes is one
Right.
from many different angles
Yeah.
I know.
to
Yeah.
become,
I know.
Yeah.
the
Now, if you can only
algorithmically pushed
Right.
down everybody's throat.
Now, if you're going to only
it's-
juxtapose it to a burning car, then you really hit the jackpot.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, and meanwhile, we're just going to ignore the absolute waste of resources that it is to have the U.S. military,
Mhm.
whose job it is to protect our freedoms, just walking down the red carpet,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's yeah.
I think, kind of going into what we've been seeing here locally in Dallas, I know, there have been, kind of protests here, not at the scale that they've been in LA. But I think one concern that a lot of practitioners have had is, and we're seeing this nationwide, but specifically here in Dallas over the last several weeks, we are seeing ICE officers in the courtroom.
Yeah.
and it's very obvious. If
Yeah.
if you guys have been in immigration court, it is very, very obvious. Like they're plainclothes officers. They're kind of parked in various areas throughout the 10th floor and the 4th floor.
Right.
And they are, I think, primarily targeting those who have entered within the last 2 years.
No.
They're not. Okay.
No. It may be primarily, perhaps, this I doubt as well. But they're, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but look, the expedited removal process that sees people removed or deported from this country without access to a judge, that can be, they can initiate that if the alien, so-called, is apprehended less than 2 years after their arrival. Well, the folks in immigration court, almost without exception, I shouldn't say almost, the majority of those in immigration court had their removal proceedings initiated within 2 years of their arrival. And so for the DHS press release that I've seen on this topic is false. They are.
You take that back.
I know.
They wouldn't.
Yeah, no, that's a fib.
Not under this administration.
No.
They wouldn't.
It's the time between, and it's hardly surprising if you read the statute. It's kind of in there. I mean, I reserve the right to argue the contrary. But when I read the statute, the Immigration and Nationality Act, it seems pretty clear that if that the apprehension we're talking about is the initial apprehension. If it happens within 2 years of your arrival, you're amenable to expedited removal, even if they terminate the sort of the full-on access to a judge removal proceedings that folks are in. They so far as I can discern, they don't care if it's been more than 2 years since your arrival. They've got you. If it was 2 years, if there was less than 2 years between your arrival and the initiation of removal proceedings, and guess what? That's nearly everybody. Virtually everyone who enters without inspection, since. I mean, I'd say it took a couple, maybe 18 months after 9/11 for the mechanics for Department of Homeland Security, once was INS, now Department of Homeland Security, to figure out how to detect virtually every passage across the border. In my consultations, and I'm sure y'all have seen the same, maybe one person in 100 who crossed the border without inspection, and since 2003 did so without detection. And maybe it's 2 or 3 out of 100, but the overwhelming majority are picked up. Now, many of them in past administrations have been released thereafter for them to face removal proceedings. But anyway, the apprehension comes within that 2-year window. It usually comes within a 2-hour window. So they are terminating the regular removal proceedings and initiating expedited removal, taking away from these folks the right of access to a judge, and then locking them away.
But hold on, Paul. DHS, they're not the judges. The judges aren't even part of DHS, right? So I'm assuming, wink, wink, that there's some system in place so that if DHS moves to dismiss a case so they can do the expedited removal, stuff somebody in a van as they walk out of court, that the judge there is going to allow somebody to argue against it, especially if the only form of relief they have is in the court. Or at least allow for reasonable notice. There's got to be some protections in place. I don't think there's no way a judge is just going to be complicit here,
No.
right?
Yeah, no, it's what we've seen so far in Dallas is complicity.
Ah, man, dang
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Dang it.
But yeah, I have so far as I have heard, and I mean, I it's secondhand. Um, but I'm aware of no judge who's pushed back against that, unless the person had an attorney, someone who advocated for them.
Yep.
But where the alien, so called, was unrepresented, it appears that the judges were downright supine. The DHS asked for termination without, really, I'd like to think that if I were if I were on the bench, I would, I'd turn to the alien and say, again, so-called, and say, what's, the government wants me to dismiss these removal proceedings or terminate these removal proceedings. Here's what it'll mean for you. Do you oppose? Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, I'm going to go, even, heck, the judge could even say at this point, I'm going to, um, because these guys came to my courtroom with all their arguments prepared and you have nothing, you don't have a lawyer. I don't know why it is that you oppose it, but you say you oppose it. So you want to appeal?
Paul, I hate to tell you.
At least that, but even
you.
that ain't happening, so far as I can discern.
You'd be fired.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, the immigration judges are not independent. They are employees of DHS, and DHS
they're not employees of DHS.
I'm sorry,
DOJ.
DOJ, thank
Right,
you.
we
And they're marching in lockstep. Even if they may sometimes seem that way, they are not part of DHS. And judges, we've seen several judges just kind of up and go, right? And the first thing they did,
be a fly on the wall. To hear the explanation for a couple of recent resignations from those spots, because I do suspect that that some local judges had simply had enough with an administration that has asked of them that they go run an abattoir.
Yeah. And so, Paul, what are people's options who receive an expedited removal? Like, can they still claim fear? What happens?
If you're subject to expedited removal, either initially as the framers no doubt intended or envisioned, or in one of these courtroom travesties, you're being subject to expedited removal. It doesn't mean that you'll be deported the next day necessarily. You have the right to, if you express a fear of returning to your country, you have the right to a credible fear interview before an asylum officer. And if they determine that you have, I should remember the standard. It's basically, if they determine that you have a reasonable chance of prevailing in an application for asylum, they will determine that you have the right to see a judge. Here's the rub. There's a lot of rubbing going on. There's a whole lot of rug burn rubbed. One is you can say you're afraid of returning, but a DHS and even more so CBP seem to have a really bad hearing problem when it comes to tengo miedo. This expression, or in any language, is one that they often fail to hear. So folks who do express a fear of returning are nevertheless denied access to an asylum officer and credible fear interview. There's that. But even if an alien subject to expedited removal expresses fear, and even if they're heard, and even if they're lined up with an asylum officer, and even if the asylum officer determines that they have a reasonable shot at winning asylum before a judge, the board decided just a couple of weeks ago that what the Immigration and Nationality Act really says about expedited removal proceedings is that if you're caught up in them, you're subject to mandatory detention, and that doesn't change if you get a positive credible fear interview and you wind up before a judge. All this is going to happen while you remain in a cage. And so it's a very different landscape than what we knew just a couple months ago.
Right.
Before they had a go at creatively interpreting the Immigration and Nationality Act. And it was bad enough without reading into it all these additional skeins of razor wire. It was bad to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of you that have ever had a sales job, right? And the manager receives notice that you must hit X quota per day or per
Right.
month or whatever.
Oh, you allude to 3,000, I should think. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Anyway.
Mhm. Hell, the most we've ever sold, we've never sold 3,000.
Right.
The most
Yeah.
we've ever sold is 1,000. And the answer is, I don't care how you do it, just get it done. Well, the
creativity up to
natural
11.
Right.
There you go.
then
Yeah.
the natural response to that, right? The natural consequence of that is, I mean, it's not just corners being cut.
Yeah.
The whole thing is cut. Like, it's just blindly anything you can get away with.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what it feels like right now.
Yeah,
It's not even a very set strategy, right? When someone asks me, well, should I be afraid going to court? The answer is yes, right?
Right.
And then we can talk about how afraid you should be,
Right.
maybe. But it's detain first, sort it out later, because they have quotas to make,
Sure.
and they don't want to be fired, right? So,
I allude with returning the creativity up to 11. I allude to an email that was sent either this last Saturday or the Saturday before that instructed ICE supervising personnel to create the creativity up to 11 in order to meet that 3,000 daily quota nationally on arrests. To keep up with
you know what? I just got a creative idea.
The
government can feel free to use this. Just tell them you hit the quota. Boom, that's it.
Yeah.
Problem solved,
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
They're not really counting,
Exactly.
and then don't make it around 3,000, obviously 3,005, 3,007, but
right. I like that.
That was on the house.
Now, on this creativity up to 11, what are some creative ways that we're going to be protecting as practitioners or clients, maybe that get wrapped up or we think might get wrapped up in, show up to court, get detained?
I think that I'd like to see ALA locally band together and rotate someone who can be at the courtroom and speak to unrepresented respondents, unrepresented non-citizens, about their rights and how it is that they have a right to appeal the decision to terminate the removal proceedings against them. It's not a panacea, but there are to have somebody present to speak to terrified immigrants would be a big would be super important, and I think it would be a sign of if nothing else, simply resistance.
Yeah.
A sign that we, the immigration bar, are mean it when we say this is wrong, and we're we're boots on the ground. This is not, we're not getting paid for this. Volunteer lawyers are there to orient people in the good people who show up. I mean, let's focus on who is it that's getting arrested when they go for the low-lying fruit. They're selecting for the rule followers. They are with these patterns of arrests. They are um, they're caging the very people who are the least likely to harm us, right?
Mhm.
These are the people who show up for their appointments with enforcement and removal operations. These are the people who show up for their hearings.
Except for those kids that got zip tied in San Antonio, they looked shifty.
Yeah.
They looked real shifty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, apart from those miscreants, yeah,
Jeez.
no, it is. Yeah, they're just taking the next. I mean, I guess next will be churches and emergency rooms, because you're going to find high concentrations of immigrants there too.
Yeah.
And while we're at it, birthday parties. Anyway, it's sick and it's twisted, and
Yeah.
this is this really the as one who's been going to immigration court, for 34 years now, this is something I've never seen before, and I've been able to say to clients, I've told clients for every one of those years with perfect confidence, no one's going to get arrested there. Go to your hearing, for heaven's sake. Go to your hearing. It is. It's it's the safest place, and now it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've my little speech is, the moment they start arresting innocent people at the immigration court, they may as well shut it down.
Mhm.
Ooh, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
seems like
And,
that's what it's going towards. Right?
I think a lot of practitioners too, they're thinking about, let's file, if a judge allows WebEx appearance, let's do WebEx appearance, right?
Yeah.
And if you can, kind of bypass the master calendar hearing in a way where you submit your application for relief, you enter pleadings, written pleadings, all of that, then, that's, kind of another thing that I've heard as well. So.
Yeah, and absolutely, it's a tactic that works for an individual, but it's just something bigger really should happen.
Honestly,
we really should circle the wagons here.
I think we do need to circle the wagons, right?
And
to
I
support.
I grabbed that metaphor, I think, ill-advisedly. I always suggest that the Native Americans are the enemy because the wagons, whatever, but yeah, pull together. At any rate, circle the wagons will do it in a pinch.
I didn't think that. I thought it was because of the dragons.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking about the dragons.
It does rhyme. Okay.
Yes,
yes.
exactly.
Okay. Wagons, dragons.
Yeah. Okay. So at any rate, we need to pull together and not take this just it is our if we're silent, we're complicit. If we're inactive, we're complicit. And I do think that showing up is likely to change the tenor in the courtroom as well. I mean, people see what
Right.
we're a social species, and when they see when the judges see me or somebody else showing up outside their courtroom and not getting paid for it, and that's crucial. Just doing it because it's the right thing to do and because this is an outrage. I think they're going to pick up on that.
Yeah.
I think that vibe carries.
The complicity that we're seeing, for most of the judges, does not equate to them being okay with what's happening. Right.
Agreed.
And so I think, building on what you're saying, it's a question of making the transaction more costly.
Yeah.
Because right now the cost is very low, right? Like,
Right.
nobody in the machinery is going to get in trouble for deporting
Yeah.
someone that they shouldn't be deporting, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, or treating them wrong, or being overly physical with some. That's just there's no um, negative incentive for that behavior,
Sure.
and so if all we can do is apply social pressure,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, then that's the way. And of course, we know how this administration and the culture that they're creating responds to it,
Hmm.
right? It's through escalation.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I have to believe that this machine is being purposely sabotaged
Hmm.
to justify the behavior that they're taking uh, almost preemptively, right? So it's like, well, yeah, people aren't showing up to court. They were showing up to court until you started,
Yeah. No, no, no. Yeah.
Gestapo tactics there, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
at some point, it's got to break. It's got to break. There's just no uh, possible way that this is going to continue, and people are going to continue to show up, going, to court. Judges' dockets are going to be empty. Then what, right?
Well,
So
it's one way to clear out 4.5 million cases is just ensure that no one shows up because they're too afraid. And that I think actually is I think that is the administration's intent when they lie about the people who are being affected. By lying, it serves two purposes. One, it makes it sound as if those who are being kidnapped are and really are recent arrivals and haven't any reasonable expectation to be permitted to remain. But the disconnect between what they say is happening, what is actually happening, and the inability of you, me, or Osma to say what the who is being arrested and whose cases are subject to termination, our inability because they're not, whatever the truth is, that's not what they're saying, right? I think that increases for us and for our clients the uncertainty and increases the number of no-shows. And a no-show is an in absentia order, and an in absentia order is never having to say you're sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
hey, you can see rather than scheduling 15 master calendar 15 respondents to see a judge in a master calendar setting, make it 30, make it 45. Christ, make it 170. And and if no one shows up, that backlog just make disappear.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I fear that that's what they're about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we talked a lot about like things that have surprised us, and I think kind of what we're seeing locally in Dallas with the arrests and stuff. Like you said, Paul, you've been practicing for a long, long time. That was something that was rather shocking to you to see, right? But let's talk about things that have not surprised us.
Okay.
So
yeah.
TPS has come to an end for several places, Haiti, Nepal, Cameroon.
Yep.
And so that's been, I think, not so much of a shocker. I think most of us were expecting that, as well as a travel ban. That's been kind of the other piece of news that we were fully expecting.
Although I will say the surprising thing about the travel ban for me isn't that there was a travel ban. You and I called this a long time ago, right? And we were just wondering what countries were going to end up on the travel ban list. The fact that they created two separate lists, and I'm laughing. I'm only laughing. This is not funny at all, but I have to laugh, right? What I laugh at can't hurt me. But they've got 12 countries that are verboten. You cannot come, right? But then they have 7 where it's like you can come, but you can't, become. You can't come permanently. And it just seems like the most random list of countries. Even the justification for these countries is hilarious, right? I mean, Okay, chat. You cannot convince me that a significant percentage of people in this administration know where Chad is, and that he's not just some dude, so they feel like they're just like
Or a hanging Chad, maybe.
exactly a hanging
Yeah.
Chad, and they're quoting the percentage of people that are overstaying as part of the justification. And it's just silly because these numbers vary from like 55% of overstays on like student visas to like 20%. So there's like no threshold.
Which is crazy to me because as a practitioner, the number one people I see overstays are people on ESTA.
European countries.
European countries.
That's
Right.
not.
Yeah, that is
none
not.
of them on here. I'm not seeing
I'm
any.
not seeing. Yeah, where's United Kingdom?
Yeah.
Right.
Seriously, because I'm like, I saw this and I was like, Laos. How did Laos get on here? Right? Like this is I mean, unless he watches King of the Hill. Because I don't know if those of you that watch the neighbor Khan,
Uh-huh.
he's a pretty annoying guy. And he is Laotian.
Okay.
So
Okay.
maybe saw a few episodes of that and he's like, I'm gonna fix this.
Yeah.
And sadly, my explanation makes as much sense as the one that's on here.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Well, kind of in the same realm of
6%
yeah.
overstay, 6.49% overstay for J visas is yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on the same realm of things that don't make
surprise
sense
us.
and
Mhm.
stupidity, we have the Trump card.
Is that are they going to sponsor that a sponsor potentially for our show? The Trump
The
card.
Trump card.
That's
And so I know very little about this other than kind of all the stupid, kind of headlines on this. Is it 5 million?
5 million.
Okay. 5
Right.
million.
There is now a website that you can sign up for, or you can go in and sign up for the waiting list for this. And the quality of this website is the same that we've come to expect from Trump wine, Trump sneakers, Trump Bible. This webpage looks just like that, except it's got a smattering of, U.S. official government U.S. stuff.
Wow.
There's a seal at the top. It says an official website of the United States government. And then you scroll down and
I'm seeing a golden likeness of Dear Leader.
yes, it is.
It is.
Dear Leader. I like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I like the eagle.
Yeah.
Right next.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But-
Yeah, the eagle is perched in his lap.
Yes. The eagle's perched in his lap.
Mm.
Wow.
Or is it in his heart? Right? Like is that is it just embedded there? This is hurting your eyes there, isn't
No,
it?
I'm just envisioning the rest of that eagle and what he'd be perching on.
His tie.
His
It's just
tie.
his tie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
It's the
right.
extended,
Right.
very, very long tie.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's
So-
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why, of
Mhm.
course.
Yeah. So anyway, but it wouldn't be much of a perch anyway.
No, I don't think so.
All right. So
Were you thinking his catheter?
yeah,
That's what I was thinking. Alleged. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually a catheter. It could be any kind of device. All right.
Right.
So yeah, that's what we're showing the rest of the world, that we're going to prioritize immigration wise. We want to deport everybody
Right. Well,
except people that have $5 million.
Oh,
Right,
and
it's like-
and those poor South African
Yeah.
farmers.
The Afrikaners. Yep.
Yes. Yes. Our dear leaders harangue about the mistreatment, the persecution of white folk in South Africa. You may have heard that it turns out that not one of the images that the president of South Africa was forced to watch was properly identified by their leader. And not one, not the crosses were not the crosses for dead white farmers. They commemorated the violent death of one South African farming couple, and they were lined up along the road by people who were understandably outraged, but it was not. I mean, every one of the descriptions, he simply pulled out um, of the air, shall we say? At any rate,
The air in his butt.
yeah. At any rate, it was this whole notion that they alone on planet Earth are the refugees who merit welcome is really deeply offensive.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that there is score settling, and I have no doubt that I know. I mean, I've represented South African whites in claims for asylum. There are absolutely genuine refugees from that country, just as there are genuine refugees coming from elsewhere. But the favoritism shown members of a white population in a majority black nation that is a democracy is really it's telling. It's telling. But what do I?
Not much. Apparently.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you don't even know that all those videos were,
Yeah.
were super, super prestigious.
So
Yeah.
So Paul, I don't know if did you ever have this cookie box growing up in your house? Immigrant household?
I
Paul?
do, I
You
do,
do.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are your parents from?
My dad arrived in the U.S. as a refugee from Hungary.
Okay.
And my mom was third generation, but was beyond that Irish and Swedish. So yes, we did actually have they were close enough to Swedish to satisfy our standards, to meet our standards. So yeah, we had Dansk about.
Did they always have cookies though?
Oh no, of course not. They was impossible. These tins are very multi-purpose. They are as Mom would often say, they're perfect for camping. All kinds of things we kept because they were perfect for camping. Empty plastic water jugs, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it was not because she was a hoarder, but just because she was brought up by folks who lived through the Depression, and my dad, got that, and there was this was not a source of any disagreement between them. We repurposed tins, and yeah, opening one was always you could tell by shaking them sometimes, but just as often you had to open to determine what in the heck is inside, be it screws or sewing equipment,
sewing kits. That was very popular.
Right.
You know what we keep in there?
What?
News.
Yeah. Okay. We keep news in here.
Right.
So this is the segment in our show where we call it Hit or Kit. Okay. And as our guest, Paul, will let you know when you have to open this. Okay.
All right.
So, is it going to be something positive? If so, it'll be cookies.
Okay.
Is it going to be something negative? If so, it'll be a sewing kit.
All right.
Similar to how we all grew up in our household.
Right.
We got excited, opened the box. Sometimes it was cookies. Most times it was a sewing kit.
If it's cookies, I don't want to shake it because I would wreck them. So.
Okay.
This guy knows.
He knows.
This guy knows.
So here's the piece of news. So the nationwide ICE protests, they kind of come at a time when ICE is kind of scrambling to meet Trump's immigration arrest quota.
Right. And this is now above and beyond the LA, what people have, again, said is a riot in LA. This is not just in LA. This is not just in California. This is everywhere, right? Like you're seeing it throughout Texas, through most urban areas, and it's centered around the immigration courts, right? Because of the stuff that we just mentioned earlier, right?
Right.
So
and I was reading that I guess they have 55,000 people nationwide detained right now, and they only have space for 41,500. And so there was a big meeting apparently with Stephen Miller. He was yelling at various ICE officials.
Well, by the way, complete tangent, has been brought to my attention that Stephen Miller looks just like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. I don't know if that's important to know now, but I think we should keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's he's the spitting image. That's
Yes.
right. I didn't mean spitting.
Yeah. So Paul, without further ado, why don't you open?
Okay. All right. So for the viewing public, Paul.
Cookies. So we read about this, the more that, these things get jammed up, less arrests, hopefully, less people detained. We have to take the positive news wherever we can get it. So
and the spectacle of Mr. Miller screaming, I his consternation is my joy.
Yeah,
let's just
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Paul, I think, kind of to keep in kind of the spirit of ending this on a positive note, Paul, as somebody who has practiced for quite a bit of time in Dallas, how do we stay positive in the midst of all of this?
I don't know. I don't know that I have. It's how do we stay positive? I'm sorry. I'm not. We have a job to do. We're I'm not saying that we give until it's gone, but we've a job to do, and I guess we have a job to do, so don't quit, but also pace yourself. It's this is not going to be a sprint. If it's not Trump, it will be there will be Trump light, there will be Trump heavy. There will be this is a fight that will be that I expect will continue as a pitched battle for the remainder of my days. I do not think that we will. I don't think that we'll slay this dragon. And so it's a funny way to answer the question, how to stay positive.
You're not doing a great job here.
No,
yeah.
We keep swinging, and we rest, and we again, we celebrate our connection to one another. We I've said to my daughter now several times that we need to value more those who catch us, and stop focusing on those who get us. We strive in our in our culture of quick gratification. We seek out the company of those. We tend to seek out the company of those who with whom we feel like a certain a superficial understanding. I'm into gaming and you're into gaming. I'm into I'm into
Bears,
cookies,
Chicago
and
Bears.
I'm into cooking. You're into cooking. Look, again, there's work to be done. Those who fight at your shoulder, by your side, and who share a greater purpose than cookies or gaming. They are they're the stuff of friends, and a family, an extended, a chosen family that will stay by you. I recently had I recently had a lawsuit I was engaged in, and lasted for a couple of years, and exhausted me, exhausted my wife, exhausted our resources, and those who came to my aid um, uh, were most of them drawn from those who had been struggling with me over the years to and Know Your Rights presentations, and struggling for immigrants' rights, and the immigrants themselves. They came and, for me, reenacted something like I kept thinking of that tear-jerking final scene in It's a Wonderful Life. The folks who came to my office and helped sort receipts and all this other stuff related to this god-awful lawsuit, were the folks, were drawn from the folks I had served and I had served with, in pursuit of justice for others. These are the relationships, these are the bonds that we forge, that will last us, I think, and serve us well throughout our lives.
Seems
So
like there's a close
there's
analog in that story, right, to what we're going through as a country, right? This battle that you were going against someone that was wrong,
Mhm.
did something objectively messed up, and got away with it.
Right.
And it cost you a lot to fight it.
Mm.
You don't, I mean, I didn't see you driven up in a limo, so I'm assuming, it wasn't something that brought you great material wealth, but
No, we
the
showed up
fight
even.
itself, the fight itself, the fact that you can fight back is replenishing, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you can do it with your inner circle, with your people.
Yeah.
And Paul, I mean, you're definitely one of those folks that I think any of us that know you would be, I mean, extremely happy to fight shoulder by shoulder with.
Thank you. Well, let's do this.
Let us slay the dragon.
Yes, let us slay the dragon.
I agreed.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
Do our best.
Paul, we thank you so much for, again, being on this episode of Immigration Invasion. This was so refreshing having you on here talking about your dragon slaying and encouraging all of us to be dragon slayers.
Right.
For, not even the next 3+ years, for kind of going forward. We should always have that dragon slaying mindset. So, yes.
I agree. I agree. I mean, again, I'm a gamer, so I take that very serious. I've got such a vivid image in my mind, and it's something that I'm going to take with me because we all need to do that. We all need to find a way to keep that fire burning and find people in your circle that help you keep the fire burning.
Yeah.
And I'm tremendously thankful for you, coming and speaking from the heart, talking about the challenges and what you've how you've girded yourself internally during your challenging times. And I mean, I hope anybody that's listening can take from that as well.
Absolutely. And thank you once again, Paul. For those of you watching, you know the drill. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube.
Yeah.
What else?
Amazon Music.
Amazon
I'm sure
Music,
there's
okay.
diehard people out there.
Yeah.
We're on Amazon Music as well. Smash that subscribe button wherever you want. Punch the follow. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we definitely would appreciate any listens out there, and any feedback too. I mean, if you guys like what you're hearing, if you want to engage in the conversation, please do so. If you have show ideas, let us know. We do appreciate everybody that's been interacting and listening, and over more than anybody else, our invaders, our guest
Our
invaders.
guest invader.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much,
Yeah.
guys. Tune into the
Thanks, Al.
next episode. And Paul, thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having me.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.